All right, so hello, everyone. Happy to see you. My name is Patricia Kilroe, and I'm a volunteer here at the Nigma Institute. And also, I've been a long time dream researcher, so I'll talk about that a little bit too. I just want to check, make sure people can hear me okay. Is that working? Okay, great. Okay, so the topic for tonight's talk is exploring dream yoga. And as I mentioned, my background is in dream research, mostly because my academic background was in linguistics. A lot of my research had to do with the language component of dreams, so how dreams are structured by language and how language appears in dreams themselves. So tonight, though, we're going to talk about dream yoga, which I've had an acquaintance with over the years, little by little, but I've been more intensively looking into it in the past several months. So in a sense, I'm a beginner, but I hope to share what I've learned recently, and we'll have some time to do a little bit of practice as well as information sharing, and then hopefully some discussion too. So maybe again, we're just started the hour, and in case another person or two might join us, we could start with a brief moment of mindfulness meditation, which is also an important component in dream yoga. So I think it's a good place to start. So we'll just do about 2 minutes worth of meditation where we're calming down, and we don't have to do anything in particular. If you want to assume your posture for meditation, that's fine, but just a couple of minutes where we're focusing on our breath and also thinking about the arising and fading away of any thoughts that might come up. So we'll just do this silently for about 2 minutes. Okay, so if we can come back together, I'd like to get it started, and we'll start by talking about what is dream yoga. So um, we'll talk a little bit for the first part of the hour on what it is and how we understand it, as well as what is its purpose within the context of Tibetan Buddhism in particular. And then we'll look at some practices, and we'll do one or two practices as well. So, okay, I'm going to just shrink my screen here. So I've listed a number of resources at the end of the slide file, but I took a lot of really wonderful information from several well-known dream yoga practitioners and writers. And one of them is Andrew Holacek, another is Alan Wallace, and then Tartung Tulku Rinpoche also has amazing things to say. So a lot of these quotes come from those three sources. But the first question is, what is dream yoga? So I wanted to get a simple definition, and one way to look at that is as a form of lucid dreaming, which we'll define in just a bit as well. Lucid dreaming that awakens our inner spiritual consciousness. And so the goal is spiritual growth, not grown, and mind training. And Andrew Holacek has a way to put this as well. Dream yoga is designed to unite us with our deeper aspects of our own being, and also is concerned with transcendence or liberation. And I'll just give a brief definition of lucid dreaming right now, even though we'll come back to that, just in case people aren't aware of what that means. So when we say lucid dreaming, we really mean while you're in a dream state, having a dream, which is essentially considered the unconscious in Western psychology, you can become aware that you're dreaming, right? You can keep dreaming, but you know that you're dreaming. And so there's more to it than that, but that's the basic idea of what lucid dreaming is. So in fact, dream yoga is very much rooted in Tibetan Buddhism, and Tartung Tulku Rinpoche in Hidden Mind of Freedom says, many times the Buddha indicated that the world is like an illusion. Once we realize this, even the most difficult and painful situations do not cause us to lose balance, and beautiful and desirable things fail to encourage attachment or grasping. So right away we see that where we're going with this dream yoga is to help us recognize the insubstantial nature of our waking reality as well. And in fact, Padmasambhava, who is, of course, the founder of the Nyingma lineage, had a lot to say about dream yoga. And there are a group of teachings that are collected in something called Natural Liberation. So Padmasambhava was probably the first one to really articulate dream yoga. And he says, our normal waking experience is just as diluted and fantastic as our dreams. The phenomena of waking experience are no less void of inherent objective reality than our dreams. And as we'll see in our practice section, one of those fundamental daytime practices is the illusory body practice, and another, the nighttime practice, is lucid dreaming. So at least as early as Padmasambhava, we were getting these teachings. So what is the purpose of dream yoga within the context of Buddhism? So again, Tartung Tulku tells us that, reminds us that waking reality is just as insubstantial as dream reality. So this emphasis on, waking up to this fact of reality as we think of it, or waking reality not having substance. And that in fact, dream yoga, the practice of it, can help us see the dreamlike quality of waking reality. So that's one of the fundamental points or goals of doing dream yoga. And then we hear from Andrew Holacek in the middle there that the point of the practice is to gain mastery over the elements. So this is again how do we become lucid dreamers and what is that for? Once we recognize that we're having a dream while we're dreaming, then there are other practices that deepen that awareness and our control, we might say, over the dream itself. So, and ultimately the state of consciousness, we would go from having dreams with narratives, stories, and so on to clear light, which is something we probably won't get into tonight, but if there's anyone who wants to talk about that in a discussion, we can go ahead and do that. And then finally here, Alan Wallace tells us the full realization of primordial consciousness is the achievement of total freedom, enlightenment. This is the ultimate aim of dream yoga and of all genuine Buddhist practice. So we're really right in line with our goals on the path. So I'm going to talk about some practices. I'm just going to mention first about the lucid dreaming and what that is first, and then we'll take a pause and see if anyone has a question or a comment, if we want to do any clarifying. So again, lucid dreaming, if for those who might not be familiar with that term, so while you're dreaming, you might suddenly become aware that you're dreaming, and you continue to dream, but you realize, oh, this is a dream. And that's one level of becoming lucid in a dream. And then the next level is your ability to do things within that dream while you're conscious. So the common first practice might be to fly or to jump really high, or, there's all kinds of levels of changing things from small to large, or, reversing whatever it might be, changing a clock into a cat. So this is this sort of recognition that this is all insubstantial, and it's our minds with which we can do all this sort of control or changing or manipulation. So the dream yoga, or let's say lucid dreaming in particular, which is a Western phenomenon too. There's a lot going on in the past few decades about scientists doing lucid dreaming research and people more and more interested in how to do that practice. So it's not always connected with Buddhism, but certainly it's a part of the Buddhist dream yoga path. So the first thing is to recognize that you're having a dream. The second is to be able to do things to whatever it is that the phenomena in your dream. And then the third, so-called liberation, is really where you get to this clear light experience. Okay, so let me stop there for a minute because we'll go into some of the practices, one of which is, how do I do lucid dreaming if it's so important in my practice as a Buddhist? So let me see if there's anyone who has something to say or question or add about anything we've said so far. Okay, I see you have a limited view, so I don't hear anything. So we'll just go on. But please feel free also if there's something that comes up for the rest of our time together, just let me know. Either do the hand raising in Zoom or just unmute and make a comment. So how do we become lucid dreamers if this is a fundamental practice? So one of the things we could do is set intention. So during the day, we just remind ourselves, tonight when I'm asleep and dreaming, I'll remember the dream that I have, and I will remember that I'm dreaming, which is a way to set an intention to become lucid in your dream. Another is an important practice within the context of Buddhism is to practice mindfulness meditation. So we're watching our minds, we're watching our thoughts, we're not holding on to anything. So we can do this both during our waking practice as well as our dream practice. And then in the lucid dream world, in order to encourage lucid dreaming for yourself, one of the things people do is called a state check. So this can be done during the day. If something unusual happens, then you can check, am I asleep or am I dreaming? How do I know that? And there are a number of ways to do that, but I gave one example. You might look at your hand and see that it looks like your ordinary hand. Then you take it out of your field of vision and then you bring it back. And at least hypothetically, if it looks like the same hand and nothing has changed, you can be reasonably sure that you're awake. But if it's a dream, it's not unlikely that when you bring your hand back the second time, it will look different. Maybe it has more fingers than it had before, or it changed color, or it looks like a claw. So the dream tends to make changes that the waking experience doesn't. So that's called a state check. And then the one other way to develop lucid dreaming is what's called dream signs. So if you are into dreams, your own dreams, you might know that you dream of the same thing a lot, the same people or the same places or the same objects. And so these recurring elements within your dreams are a way to recognize that you're dreaming. So are things that might be unusual. So for example, let's say you have a beloved deceased relative and you know that they show up in your dreams from time to time. You can sensitize yourself to say that that's a dream sign. And if you see that beloved relative in a dream, you know that it's a dream because somewhere in your consciousness, you're aware that they couldn't appear except in a dream. So that would be an example of a dream sign. So those are some ways in which we can develop lucid dreaming itself. And then dream yoga, here's a daytime practice that it's an important practice called illusory form. There's illusory body, illusory speech, illusory mind. But in general, it's that practice during your waking hours of saying, now this is different from a state check. It's almost the opposite, where even though you believe you're in your reality, your waking experience, you comment on it, you label it as a dream, right? I'm dreaming this is a dream. Because one of the important goals is to recognize that even though we think we're awake and this is the most awakened state we can be in, that from the Buddhist perspective, we're actually in a dream. And the more we're able to recognize that, the better. And it's also something that sensitizes us so that when we go to sleep at night, and we can keep saying to ourselves, this is a dream, this is a dream, we might then be able to become lucid in that dream and be aware that we're dreaming. So some of these practices, I've taken a number of classes, well, the classes that I could take here at Nyingma over the years. Sylvia Gretchen taught a course and a workshop. Wonderful Santosh also taught a wonderful course not too long ago. And so these practices are from their classes. And as we'll see, there's a sort of preparatory way to get ready for sleeping and dreaming. And then there's the connection, the liminal space between being awake and falling asleep and carrying that. So for example, the daytime practice is the morning chant. And this can be done at night as well. So the syllable ah, whether it's the Sanskrit or Tibetan or even the English word letters for ah, that it's a very good practice for loosening up your throat muscles. And that's very important. Relaxation is important. The throat in particular is important because it's the chakra at which we're communicating. So it's considered in dream yoga as a pivot point between what we're speaking to in our day experience, right? How we communicate with the outside world if we're using speech, but also as a way in which when we dream, we're considered to be talking to ourselves. We're communicating from our own minds to another component of our mind. So that throat chakra is really pivotal in the practice of dream yoga. So loosening it up, relaxing it is a really good way to practice that by chanting ah. So I think we'll have plenty of time to come back and see if we want to try this practice out. Okay, so another practice, it would be, again, paying attention to your day experience, your thoughts, and are you experiencing negative emotions? Are you able to transmute those into positive emotions? Just playing with your own thoughts and feelings during the day, because you're embracing the insubstantiality of your experience, just as you might do in a dream. And so another practice for relaxation that Rinpoche gives us is when you're in bed and ready to fall asleep, that there's a relaxation process, especially for again, the throat chakra and the muscles of the face and neck. And I'm hoping we'll get back and we'll do a couple of these practices too in just a couple of minutes. I'd like to just take us through what we've got here, and then we'll go ahead and do some practice. So another practice that Rinpoche tells us is to keep mindful of our thoughts as we're falling asleep. So we're just basically practicing mindfulness meditation in that state, so that would encourage us to become aware of those thoughts in that space after we transition from being awake, falling asleep, and then actually being asleep. And that's one more way in which we can encourage lucid dreaming. And then this practice, again, this was Sylvia Gretchen's, one of her workshops. And it's the Dream Lotus practice that, of course, was introduced to us by Rinpoche. And I think we'll go through this just so everyone can experience what this might be like. But basically, we're going to be visualized after we do a relaxation practice. We visualize a lotus or a rose at the throat chakra, and that then becomes the center of that flower, becomes a golden flame, and that flame represents awareness, and that carries us off into sleep. And again, that is a practice meant to encourage us to become lucid dreamers once we do fall asleep. So what is it that we feel is the benefit of doing dream yoga practice? And the first quote here is again from Andrew Holacek. The reason dream yoga is worth bothering with is that everything you do on the surface of your life is dictated by subtle, deeper levels. Small shifts at unconscious levels can have potent effects on our conscious lives. And then Rinpoche tells us, with continuing practice, we see less and less difference between the waking and the dream state. Our experiences in waking life become more vivid and varied, the result of a lighter and more refined awareness. We're no longer bound by conventional conceptions of time, space, form, and energy. This kind of awareness based on dream practice can help create an inner balance. Awareness nourishes the mind in a way that nurtures the whole living organism. Awareness illumines previously unseen facets of the mind and lights the way for us to explore ever new dimensions of reality. So I've put up, these are the basic works that I worked on for today's talk, and there are lots and lots of resources out there. These are other resources that I've I'm acquainted with that I can recommend, but I haven't been working with them recently. And I'm happy to send any of this to anyone who's interested in more exploration of dream yoga. I'm going to stop the share now, just again to see everyone and see if there's any questions or comments. And then I'd like to take everyone through a couple of practices and see how that works for you. So anyone have anything they want to speak to at this point? Let me ask you guys a question. Has anyone had a lucid dream or is a regular lucid dreamer?
Irregular.
Irregular. Yeah. That's how I am too. So not claiming any sort of expertise in the world of lucid dreaming, but yeah. So Olivia, do you have any connection to like what might have sparked whatever lucid dreams you've had? Like, was something happening where you particularly, was it after intensive retreat or something like that? Anything that seemed like it was a pattern for why it sparked a lucid dream?
Um, it was uh, it was most active during a retreat I took at the Institute, the 4 month retreat, and I was very relaxed. We did, of course, a lot of meditation practices, and that clearly played a big role. So many of the dreams were just kind of a continuation of the day. It felt like just dreaming about the group, being in the group, doing practices together. So it seemed like there wasn't a lot of difference between waking and dreaming.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think, I've had my own experience, but also heard about basically two very different kinds of lucid dreaming. And in one scenario, it's very much like our waking reality. And so it's almost like a duplication of what our current reality is while we're asleep. And then we become aware that it's a dream. And then another is like the absolutely fantastic, crazy sorts of images and irrealities that then those in themselves might wake somebody up to being lucid in the dream. Okay, thanks, Olivia. Donna.
Would this be one? I remember having a dream that was so good. It was just so it was just so complicated. And then I woke up and I wanted to go back to sleep and start right where I was, and I did. Is that what you're talking about
So
at all?
that's actually a really great thing to be able to do. It's a little bit different because somehow you were able to, even though you woke up into, whatever physical reality you were in, you were able to go back in and continue that narrative. And that's a really great thing to be able to do. Lucid dreaming's a little different. It's while you're in the dream, you become aware that, oh, this is a dream, right? Most of the time we don't have that recognition. We're just so caught up in the dream itself, whether something pleasant is happening or something frightening or, whatever it might be. We're just very often in the dream, we're just participating, right? We buy into the reality of the dream. And then if you become lucid, that means that somehow something happens and you realize, oh, wait a minute, this is a dream, right? So you don't have to be as invested in what's happening, or you can do things within that you choose to do. Does that make sense about the difference?
Yes, it does. And this specific dream that I'm talking about was so good, and was just I was expanding so much. I was learning so much in this dream, and I remember that I'm not sure that I really did wake up, or if I was dreaming that I woke up, and I don't know. It was just, I did get to go back. I did get to continue the dream, but I'm not sure that I really did wake up.
Well, that's another
that
thing.
right?
Yeah, that's called a false awakening. If
Oh.
in fact you thought you woke up, but you didn't, that's
Mhm.
actually a really interesting, another sort of way in which a dream operates. And that would be called a false awakening. Yeah, which those are pretty cool too.
Well, how do you know if you woke up or not? I
Only
mean, it
you
doesn't matter.
know.
I
Unless
mean, I don't know if
you,
it matters.
well, exactly. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily matter.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's interesting though, and if you, as you work with your mind, and you become aware, like these different states, what kind of reality is it, and does it matter which reality it is? Are they all just as insubstantial as each other? So
Oh, interesting.
yeah, but that would be good if that's something that is available to you in your own practice of dreaming, then, you might cultivate that, just sort of paying attention. Am I awake or am I still dreaming? You
Okay,
might
thank you.
actually become a lucid dreamer through
Well, that's what I was
that.
wondering about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's good.
thank you.
Sure.
And what percent of our sleep is dreaming? Do you
Yeah, so
dream,
that
everybody dreams, or
Yeah,
some?
so there's a lot of good science out there that started way back in the 1950s about the stages of sleep and, laboratory work that shows that, what we typically consider a dream, like, with a storyline, that often those happen in what's called REM sleep, REM sleep. And we go through these cycles of sleep. If we're having an ordinary amount of sleep, we have about 4 stages of sleep, and those repeat throughout the number of hours that we're actually sleeping. And the rapid eye movement sleep, or other called REM, that's where we often have the things we call dreams. And each of the cycles, the REM stage gets a little bit longer. And that's one reason that we often remember the dream we had right before we wake up, because that can be up to 90 minutes of REM sleep. So the other side of that is, though, that more recently there's been questioning of whether we only have those kinds of dreams in REM. We're finding now that we can have dreams in any stage of sleep, although it looks like the rapid eye movement sleep is still the one where we're going to get the more intense and vivid dreams. So yeah. So it's hard to answer that because, sometimes we don't get enough sleep and then we're not getting enough REM sleep and we don't remember the dream, but we are dreaming. And when people say, well, I never remember my dreams, sometimes that's because of a memory issue. It's not that we're not dreaming, it's that we're not making a connection in our memories to something that we can then grab onto and bring out into consciousness. Yeah. Anyone else have any experience of lucid dreaming or any other kind of unusual dream phenomena that you wanted to share? There's all sorts of ways which we can have precognitive dreams. That's not unusual in the practice of dream yoga, where we can dream something and then it happens, whether it's the next day or a year from then or whenever. Or we can have telepathic dreams where we're, having some sort of communication with someone else's mind, often somebody that we're close to, a relative or a close friend. So a lot of different sorts of phenomena can happen, it's not just lucid dreaming, especially like Olivia was saying, if you're doing a lot of meditation practice, then it really does help because the mind is so much more loose and relaxed that these sorts of things make their way into our consciousness, our memories. So how about if we try a little practice? Does that work for everybody? Just to see what this might be like, so that if you did want to try this at night, you'll have gone through it and not just through the written instructions, but just try it out a bit. So I'm not going to read from the slides. I'm just going to sort of take you through the practice, and then we'll see, what questions might come up from that. So the first thing is, let's take another moment, because a good practice, whether it's in the daytime or in your preparation for going to sleep, is mindfulness meditation. So let's just do 1 minute more of that to get us sort of in a state to do the relaxation and visualization practice. Okay, so let's move into relaxation practice. And as we saw in the slide, one of those practices might be chanting ah. And so, feel free to do this even silently or vocalizing, because it really is a good thing to help you relax your vocal cords. And as we said, that throat chakra, that energy center, is that communication pivot between the waking world and the dream world. So let's just do that for less than a minute, and I'll vocalize. Feel free to do it as you would like to. So ah, 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 ah. And so you would be able to just keep doing that for several minutes if you like. It pairs well with Kumye practices. So and any other sort of Kumye relaxation practice that you might prefer. So that's one relaxation practice. Now let's relax, and let's think about relaxing more of those muscles around the throat. So I'm just going to take you through a little bit of a relaxation, and we'll move from there into a visualization. So again, think about your throat. Just sort of bring your mental attention to your throat area. Think about relaxing the vocal cords. And then think about also relaxing your jaw. Maybe there's some tension there, and you can just kind of loosen it up. And think about the roof of your mouth, the tongue, the root of your tongue could be loosened up too. There's sometimes we hold the tension there, tension around the mouth with our lips. And also the rest of our face, our eye muscles, sometimes we're holding those, so we can just go ahead and relax gently close your eyes and relax those muscles. And above the eyes, the brow area, the forehead, the temples. So just kind of think about relaxing all of that in your face. And also in your neck, so we have your throat, of course, but also the back of your neck might be carrying some tension, and your shoulders. So just bring your attention there and let any tension go. And then we'll just scan the rest of the body and do a brief relaxation of that. So your shoulders, you can relax those. Your arms, down to your hands and your fingertips. And then back up through the torso area, relaxing down into the abdomen, your hips, your thighs, the back of the thighs, the legs, down at the knee area, the calves. Relax your feet. Maybe wiggle your toes a little bit to relax them as well as your fingers. So once we're feeling pretty relaxed, then we're ready to start our visualization. And we're going to go back to our throat area and visualize just a small drop of radiant awareness. And this is very much like moonlight, right? Just the color of moonlight. So small white drop of radiant awareness at the throat center. And as we visualize that drop, we allow that drop to transform into a beautiful lotus flower or a rose. And the flower could be a pink flower, it could be white like the moonlight, whatever comes to mind, just allow that color. It's really fine for it to be anything at all. But the petals of that flower are going to curl upwards a little bit. Again, you're still visualizing this flower in your throat, and the petals are curling upwards. And in the center of the flower, there's a tiny golden flame. So you can see that flame there. That's a flame of awareness. And any other thoughts that are coming up, just let them come up and let them go. You're still focusing your attention, you're keeping your mind on that flame that's in the center of your flower. And as your thoughts come up, they can just also blend with the flower as they disappear. And finally, as you're drifting off to sleep, you can visualize that that flame is floating off into a sea of darkness. It's taking you into your sleep with the awareness still on that flame, that radiant flame. So I'm going to bring us back now, since we're not actually going to sleep, I hope, yet, or maybe we are. But if you were doing this in your sleep, as you went to sleep, then hopefully, it would be a relaxation practice, and it would encourage, again, your awareness to continue into the state of sleeping. Sometimes people they're just focused so much on the getting the visualization right, or it's just, something that's too vivid for them. And you want to just not be too tight about it, right? Just let it be. It's really a relaxation practice, so you want to do that. Okay, so I'm gonna just put this practice and ask for any reactions. What was that like? Did it feel relaxed? Was it easy to visualize the lotus or the rose? Was it difficult? Would love to hear what people experienced with that. Hedian?
I think I was at the same workshop with Sylvia Gretchen long time ago, and then tried very hard. But I didn't quite understand what she's trying to convey. But I just try hard. There's some moon drops or something, and then that night I tried very hard. At one moment, the moon really very big, round moon, full moon, just suddenly like a boy from the water, just coming up and white, all white. So I was very impressed, but I didn't understand what that is. What is dream yoga and what that was, and what does that mean that I saw that moon-like something buoy up from the water. But anyway, that time Sylvia asked us if we had any experience from the workshop, just to email her. So I emailed her what happened to me, and then she encouraged me to keep doing it, but I don't really understood and still don't understand what the drops of awareness and then transforming visualization to flower petals and things. And what's the relationship with that and with my lucid dreaming and enlightenment? I cannot thread it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, thanks for pointing that out. So yeah, let's go back and just sort of go through that more informally. So the idea of the lucid dreaming as part of dream yoga is to, on the one hand, increase our awareness, right, of our mind. We're developing the practice of awareness. And so in lucid dreaming, if we consider that one way to look at states of consciousness is as three, right? We have our waking consciousness, we have our dreaming consciousness, we have our sleeping consciousness. And that's sleeping is a completely different thing. There's a sleep yoga, and that's a much more advanced practice. So right now we're looking at the difference between our what we consider to be waking awareness and dreaming awareness. Dreaming awareness in this practice, in this body of teachings about dream yoga, is a good field, right? A good place for us to begin to understand that things are not as solid as we take them to be. Because when all of us, right, when we have a dream and we wake up from a dream, we recognize that as a dream. We recognize that it's not real, right? We say, oh, it was just a dream. And we recognize, whatever it was, the characters or the place or the events, that was not substantial. It was just a dream. It was not real. So in dream yoga, the ability for us to recognize that as a common way we look at dreams allows us to carry that kind of awareness of the unreality or the insubstantiality of the dream experience and say, oh, okay, the waking experience, we take that to be real, to be very solid, but it's not, right? Actually, in the teachings, that's what we're trying to appreciate about our waking experience, is just how not fluid those things can be, that we take our emotions or our thoughts or the world outside of ourselves, right? So we have that duality of who we are and what's out there, out beyond ourselves. That all of that we take to be solid in our ordinary waking experience isn't so solid, and that we can learn from our dreams to see that waking reality as less real than we typically take it to be. So that's one of the important reasons to look at dreams from the lens of dream yoga, is in order to carry that into waking experience and recognize waking experience as dreamlike. Because the more we recognize that experience as not solid, but as fluid, the closer we are to expanding our awareness on the Buddhist path. Does that make sense, or is that too many words? What do you think, Hyeryn? Does that explain a little bit?
Yeah.
So, but the other part of your question about, why do we have to visualize this flower and the flame and all this complicated stuff, the moonlight, it's really just symbolic of how do we get from carrying our waking awareness into the dream state. So if we're going to practice dream yoga, the awareness of being in a dream while we're in a dream, then we want something to help us do that, right? So some techniques to help us become aware in the dream that we're dreaming. So this dream lotus practice is one way. It's not the only way, but it's one way for us to try to maintain awareness, right? Because that's what we want. We want that conscious waking awareness to be something we have available to us in the dream state. So visualizing the flower and the center of it, that flame, is really that symbol, if you want to call it that, of awareness, And so if we carry that flame in a visual image from, I'm still awake, but I'm visualizing that flame, if I can carry that into the dream state, it may help me become aware in the dream state that I'm dreaming. But it's just one way to do that. There are a lot of ways. We looked at just a couple of them. There are a lot of ways to become aware or lucid in your dream that you're dreaming. And that practice doesn't work for everyone. It just, I'd love to hear if people do try it. I'd really like to know if it works for you. I've not had lucid dreams through that practice, but vivid dreams. I think, I don't know, Olivia, maybe in a conversation we had that too, that the dreams became more vivid through the practice.
Yeah. I was just thinking as you were talking, Patricia, and explaining in a little bit of a different way, I was thinking about how in waking life, we all have emotions. And our emotions, it's like putting a veil on us. Our awareness becomes so constricted, if you're just raging, angry, or jealous or something. And it's so in having emotions, it's like being in a dream, because your awareness is so limited. But we can actually gain a wider perspective when we step back, when the body settles down and we become less worked up and calmer. We can see more clearly. And I don't know. I don't know if thinking that way is helpful at all.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's so much a part of the practice, the daytime practice of dream yoga, seeing any of those states, what we're thinking, how we're looking at things as solid, the emotions that color the way we look at things. Yeah, I mean, all of that is like fodder for, sort of poking at what we think is real and realizing it's not so substantial or real after all. Yeah, so well put.
I have a question for you. If
Go ahead.
anybody else wants to say anything, please. But I had a recent last week. I had a nightmare, and it's a nightmare that has come up quite a bit over the years. And my husband is a light sleeper, and I was sort of whimpering and struggling, and it kind of woke him up, and he decided to wake me up to liberate me from my dream. And in the past, I've said, "Don't wake me up," because I want to be able to try to resolve it. And sometimes I have been able to, but in this case, it didn't resolve it. But what it did do was suddenly, when I woke up, I thought, "Oh, that person who is, holding a knife over me is actually another part of myself." So I don't know. It was just, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that's a bad thing to do? But it was the first time that I'd had this sort of similar dream, and saw it, that maybe it is, I'm, I'm somehow responsible in my awareness, lack of awareness.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, any kind of dream work that helps you see, what's happening, what aspects of ourselves are doing to other aspects, or, that sounds really healing if you're able to get to that place and recognize that, this is very possibly a component of yourself. I mean, the recurring dream is that, right? That it's something unresolved within ourselves. And it could be something like, post-traumatic stress. It could be some other form of emotion that it just never got resolved, that recurs, when we come into some similar situation. So looking at it that way can, be very medicinal. Absolutely. Yeah. And in fact, in the more advanced practices of dream yoga, when once the practitioner becomes not just aware that they're dreaming, but that they can do things in the dream, the more and more advanced, the more you challenge yourself in the dream. So if you're aware that you're dreaming, one thing might be to do pleasurable things like go flying or something else that seems pleasant. But eventually you get to practices where you try to go into a very frightful situation in order to challenge your own fear in the dream. So it really does allow you to work with the emotions that we are so, constantly experiencing in our waking life, that we can work with those in the dream. And part of what the fruition of dream yoga is that if we can do that, right? Let's say we're working with negative emotions, and we can do that in the dream and face those, or, otherwise reverse them, that ability sort of carries over into our day world, and it makes it a little bit easier for us to work with the emotions in our waking experience. So I think we're almost out of time, and just like to hear if anybody else has a comment. Thank you, everybody, for being here and engaging in this discussion. Is that Andrea?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
This was really interesting. And I was thinking that one of the reasons we would do this was to practice in our sleep, or be able to use our sleeping time as practice, but maybe that's something a little different.
No, it is. You're right. It's so if we're practicing, then why, so it goes, if we're only practicing in the waking state, then we're only practicing for part of our life experience. So, practicing in the dream state, and eventually this thing called sleep yoga would be where we'd want to expand to. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for making that point. Great. Okay, Dan?
Yeah, I've seen online lucid dreaming masks, and it's a blindfold you put on. It has sensors and LEDs, and when you go into REM sleep, it alerts you that you're lucid dreaming. Do you know anything about those, and do they work?
I've heard about it, and I've just heard, as I'm involved with a organization called the International Association for the Study of Dreams, and there's a number of, really wonderful scholars and practitioners who do lucid dreaming as their exclusive practice. And so those masks, apparently they do help some people. I've never tried that, but it was invented by those same people who are deeply involved in the lucid dream world. So yeah, I don't know. If you wanted to try it, it'd be great to know what it was like. But I've heard that some people really find it does help. It does increase your ability to become lucid in the dream. But I don't have any personal experience of it.
Yeah, I remember them from the early 1990s. They were testing them at Stanford University. That's where I first heard of them.
Yeah, yeah. So Stephen LaBerge, who is the well-known scientist at Stanford, that was his creation, co-creation. Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, I see we're at the hour, so I want to thank everyone again and really appreciate your participation today. So, and then if anybody wants to, you can email the front desk, I guess, if you want to see the resources at the bibliography, if you're interested in pursuing that. There's also tons and tons of stuff on YouTube with some of these writers that I've listed in my bibliography who are doing, interesting videos about this practice too. So, okay, thank you, everyone. Sleep well,
Tricia, that was
pleasant dreams.